Okay, so I had a little bit of grieving today, off and on, for my neck and the drama that's going on with it. And frankly, it's been going on for many, many, many years. It just has gotten progressively worse and worse and worse. And what's even worse about all that is there's not a lot that can be done. They cannot get rid of the arthritis. They cannot. It once the stability of the disc has been compromised, there isn't much they could do. I mean, they could put an artificial one in, or they could put a cadaver disc in there, but they would probably have to fuse it, and that could cause a snowball effect for the rest of the neck, from what I read. It's just best not to mess with it, which is horrible. Um, so yeah, I had some grieving for the depth of the damage, And I remember back in the 90s, I was working for the sheriff's office, and back then it was so old school, and it probably maybe still is. I don't know. I'm sure they modernized to some degree. I would hope. Okay. But I would have to sit on the floor and go through drawers and drawers and names and names and names, looking for the hard copy of a person's warrant for their arrest. Because yes, the computer can tell you that, but you also need the hard copy. So this was back in the 90s, and I had my head bent over for an extended period of time because I'm looking through these files, and there's tons and tons of paperwork and files to go through. And I remember back then, the pain was so excruciating. I don't know if any of y'all have ever experienced this, where the pain is so horrific that you want to cry, but you can't. And I will never forget that agony. As long as I live, I will never forget that agony. That stays in my mind because it was horrific. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want myself to know. Damn sure don't want people, my boss sending me home like, why are you close to tears? What's going on? So you act as normal as you possibly can. But will I ever forget the pain of that? Oh, absolutely not. And I've worked security, and I've done that for years, and off and on through the years. And you know, um, you've got that coupled with back pain, and it's just a horrific thing, and you have to hide it. Like, when you apply for a job, back then when I was applied for a job, and it says, "Is there anything that limits you in your ability to work?" Nope, because I'm trying to pay bills. Because hey, bills don't slow down or stop because you going through something. Okay, let's keep it real. So I'm like, hey, nothing stops me. I got to do what I got to do. And I remember working one shift in particular, and I got in the car, and I was just parked, and I grabbed the steering wheel, and my head just slumped down, and I'm just trying not to cry because of the pain in my back and being on my feet for 8 hours. But you do what you got to do to get bills going. So, when you find out that this is your new normal, and the damage is so extensive, but there's nothing anyone can do. Yes, that's very sad. It's depressing. Because I'm a fixer, and I'm like, okay, in this modernized day of medicine, there's nothing y'all could do? Are you for real? There's nothing they could do except for physical therapy, which I will inquire about. Oh, how frustrating. Oh, God, how frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. Anyway, what can you do? What can you do? So, for those of you that have watched Dr. Orna on YouTube, and I have posted some of the sessions on in the description of the whatever video. Sin and Yaya are a lesbian couple. They're doing very well for themselves, very well for themselves. They both graduated nursing school, and then Sin had basically everybody, when everybody met her partner, they're like, oh my God, she's wife material. Okay. And a lot of times in life, and we really have to put a stop to this, we fill our lives with what we're quotation marks supposed to do. You're supposed to go to school, you're supposed to graduate, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, you're supposed to have a house and a dog and a goldfish. And there's no rules. That's just people talking. Come on. None of them are going to fund any of that. They're not going to say, hey, we think you should buy a house. And since we all up in your business, here's the down payment for the house. Ain't nobody trying to do that. They just telling you what you should do and barking at you. And, the media feeds into that stupidness. And before you know it, you're brainwashed and you're led to believe that your life isn't fulfilled until you check all these boxes, which is stupid. You need to do what works for you. The hell with look here. Don't get me fired up today. The hell with what everybody else thinks. Parents included, grandparents included. Y'all mind your business. We love you dearly. Mwah. Stay out of it. Let people have their individuality. Let them do what works for them. Don't push people into stuff because that's what everybody else is doing. We are not carbon copies of each other. I don't want none of y'all, Zippo, none of you all being pushed into a corner where you have to, you got to get married, you got to get out of school, graduate, you got to get married, you got to have kids, you got to make your parents happy. Look here, your parents are going to be happy either way, and if they're not, then look here. Time to have a sit-down chit-chat with them. They live their life, you have to live yours, okay? But because society, and we got to stop listening to society is comprised of a bunch of idiots. I don't give a shit what nobody says. Who doesn't like it? Get off my channel. Goodbye. Sayonara. Get the freaking hell out of here. We won't miss you. If you're that ignorant, we won't miss you. But society is comprised of a lot of idiots and a lot of people who follow what everybody else told them to do or inferred that they should do, or to listen to what their friends told them, or what Billy Bob and Susie Q and everybody told them. Everybody should mind their god dang business. You live your life. You let these people live their life. You don't push them to do something that they don't want to do, because that is the reason I ended up with satanic parents. Demonic ass parents, because neither one of them were smart enough to avoid having children. Both of y'all are fuck ups. Why do you think you qualify to have children? So what do? You get married and you have kids, and then you ruin your daughter's life because you never wanted a girl in the first place. And because he's a narcissist and a dumbass, he doesn't know what a condom is. He had no business. Neither one of them fools should have got married. And you damn sure don't have kids just because society told you to. Nobody in society was going to rescue my ass from neither one of them. All of a sudden, you hear crickets. That's another reason why you got to stop, letting society dictate what you do. Even on a subconscious level, you're letting other people tell you what to do with your life, with your life. And if you have kids and you didn't want them, guess who suffers? The kids do. Because you thought you were supposed to have them. Your brain ain't screwed in your head correctly without kids. And you think you're supposed to have them? You lost your goddamn flipping mind up in here. You know what I'm saying? We don't have our head on straight, but we're going to have kids. Yee! The nerve and the audacity is what I got to say about that. Who do you think you are? And everybody that's telling you what to do, You should have kids. You don't have kids yet? Didn't you guys just get married? When are you going to start having kids? Mind your business. Get out of people's reproductive organs. Get out of there. You don't need your head up in there. Mind your business. Because the kids are the ones that suffer. Stop listening to society. They're morons. Most of them are freaking morons. You could ask them when they do something really, really, really dumb, like get married and have kids, and they never wanted any of that. You could ask them, why'd you do that? Oh, I don't know. Right. And you're relying on them to tell you what to do with your life? You gotta be kidding me. Anyway, so Yaya is what everybody thought. Nicest girl ever, perfect wife material, perfect mom. Not perfect, but you know what I mean. Like, would fit those roles well, okay? And because Sin, which could be short for Cynthia, I don't know. But because she is self-sabotaging, and I told you this before, she was saying some mean things to her wife. And she was saying things like, I'm just not attracted to you like that anymore. And Dr. Orna said, there's more to it than that. You don't just all of a sudden one day you're not attracted to this person. There's more to it. What's going on? Okay. You don't just turn that off like a light switch. That's kind of bizarre. But just not attracted to you anymore. Da 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 da. And it seems like she got married because that's what you quotation marks supposed to do. And now, and then she, once they're married, and once they have kids, she comes out of the left field talking about, well, I want to explore other people. I want to have fun with other people, and I want to open up our marriage. Wait, hold it. Let's put the brakes on. Your marriage, at one point, they're better now because of counseling, but your marriage at one point, which it could easily fall back to that point, your marriage is on rocky ground and thin, cracking ice. Where in all of that do you think being polyamorous is going to repair that? Yeah, that's a good idea. We've got a fire that's out of control. We need to put the fire out, but let's put more wood on the fire. And you know what? While we're at it, why don't we just take the fuel that's in the can, and we'll squirt that on the fire because that should squelch the fire, shouldn't it? Because that's what you're doing. You're adding fuel to the fire. You can't add more people and expect to have less problems. You can't do that. You're on rocky ground. And adding more people adds to more complications. Now, do people think of that while they're getting their cookies off? Absolutely not. They're thinking about fun, fun, fun. They're not thinking that long term, this could affect my marriage. They're not thinking that, holy crap, I caught feelings for someone and that wasn't part of the deal. They're not thinking that, oh my God, my partner fell for somebody and is neglecting me, even though that wasn't what we agreed to. Crap, now what? They've got tunnel vision, fun, 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 fun. And nobody's thinking about the consequences. Nobody. Because they're too busy having a good time. And Sin has a lot in her luggage from her childhood. She's pissed off at her parents. She's pissed off at her uncle. And more often than not, you drag whatever's in your childhood, you drag that into your adult life. And you drag that into your marriage. And now you're angry and resentful at your partner. Your partner hasn't even done anything because you have unresolved baggage. And the only way to resolve that is through counseling or group therapy or EFT. I forget what that stands for. It's a type of therapy, though. I forget what it's called. Or what the words, the letters are. But it's EFT counseling and therapy, I should say. And because anything that you have in your childhood that hasn't been resolved, and God knows I know this from experience, not from something I read in a book, and now I have a degree, and now I'm an expert. I actually lived it, okay? But major difference between learning in a college and actually living it. Major difference, okay? Yeah. But whatever hasn't been resolved in your childhood doesn't disappear in a puff of smoke. It turns into anger and frustration. And now you're mad at your partner. Everything they do makes you mad. You part your hair on the left. I prefer you to part it on the right. Why do you always have to cough every morning when you're drinking your coffee? You're always coughing. Don't you have a allergic? Don't you need to take some medicines for allergies? What's going on with you? You cough too much. Um, you wearing that shirt again? Didn't you wear that last week? So now you're not only angry because of unresolved issues, but now you're nitpicking and poking at your partner. Poke, 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 poke. And we're not talking about narcs because they're going to poke because they're miserable bastards and bitches. They're just miserable, evil ass beings. So they're going to aggravate shit out of everybody. We're talking fairly normal people that don't get off on pissing off their partner. They don't really get their jollies doing that. So whatever you don't resolve turns into anger and frustration. And you can legitimize your anger and make it look legitimate. Now, in the grand scheme of things, is that the end of the world? For example, you told your partner, when you're done with your coffee, can you please just put your coffee cup in the sink instead of by the sink? Why don't you put it in a sink? The partner forgets because they're accustomed to doing it the quotation marks wrong way. And so they keep putting it by the sink. And you try to ignore it. And then the anger and frustration builds. And then you finally flip out. You're so inconsiderate. I'm sick and tired of telling you the same thing over and over again. Your head is like a titanium brick. You do not listen. You don't take my needs, seriously at all. You take me for granted. I am not your personal maid. On and on and on and on. And you know what? You know what, baby? Guess what? If you are making a gigantic mountain out of a molehill, chances are the real issue is underneath all of that. You have a right to be annoyed, don't get me wrong. Person isn't listening. And they do keep putting the cup by the sink. And yes, that's annoying. But when you explode, there's more to it than a coffee cup. When you're fighting about everything, you're fighting about nothing. Nothing that's relevant right now, but something that is buried deep that you might not even remember. It's called repressed memories. So there may be something that is right under your skin, just driving you crazy, and you might not even know what it is. And that would have to be addressed in therapy. And I know that I don't remember the husband's name, but Erica is a chocolate lady with braids on Dr. Orna. And her husband, I think he's Hispanic. I could be wrong. I forget his name, but he had anger issues too. And she damn sure had anger issues. And Dr. Orna said, I'm not the right therapist for you. Because the more she tried to work with them, the angrier Erica got. And every time her husband talked, she'd roll her eyes like, oh, God, the sound of your voice. I mean, she was really angry. When they sent her to individualized counseling or sent them to a different counselor, or I think Erica might have went by herself, which she really needed to do because her anger is out of control. You know what I'm saying? You could tell that she had had some sessions because when they came back, her face was a lot more relaxed and she wasn't rolling her eyes up in her head, sucking her teeth and whatever. She wasn't doing none of that no more. And it was really refreshing to see that change, that relaxation in her face. That was nice to see. because she acted like he was the worst thing she'd ever come across, and it didn't have anything to do with him. It had a lot to do with underlying deeply buried issues. So if you're screaming to the point where you're about to lose your voice over the coffee cup, I can promise you there's more to it than that. But we can sound so legit with how angry we are. And we could come up with a list. You throw your socks on the floor. You don't put the coffee cup in the sink. I asked you twice to cut the grass. I shouldn't have to ask you. You see how tall the grass is. And you can have an itemized list of everything that makes you mad. And true, all of those are legitimate frustrations. But there could also be some very deeply buried issues. And then, on top of that, we have a tendency to marry someone just like our parents or like one of our parents. And if they were dysfunctional, oh my good God. Wow. Mm-hmm. You end up marrying someone like your toxic ass parent. And your childhood's being repeated, only you're an adult now. Because you married one of your parents. Not literally, okay? Hopefully, because that's creepy. But you will notice that there's a repeat pattern of the things that make you frustrated. Your parents went through this, then you marry someone just like that particular parent, and then the cycle continues. So if you're going to make it work, you're going to have to go to counseling and you're going to have to figure it out. Otherwise, you guys are going to be another statistic, divorced, fighting over child custody. You don't want all that. It's the best case scenario, which we don't necessarily do this until things blow up and then we're like, oh shit, we got to do something to slow this down. But it's ideal to address your issues before you get in a serious relationship. Otherwise, you pack up your suitcase and you bring it right into your relationship. And everywhere you go on a date, you bring it with you. And every time the person says something, you twist it to be, I'm just use this as an example, you twist it to be a personal attack on you when that is not what's happening at all. But because you're accustomed to being on the defense all the time, you stay on the defense with the person who didn't even do anything to you, right? So those issues have got to be addressed, or else you pack them with you. and you're going to be faithful about taking them wherever you go. Like I said, I went overseas. I went to Acapulco years and years ago, and he thought because we're staying in a hotel and, my husband at the time, the ocean is slapping against the beach and you could hear it and it's this, that, and the other. And under normal circumstances, that might be great. But we never resolved what was going on in the US. And you'd think because we hopped on a couple of airplanes and landed over there, you'd think those problems vanished in a puff of smoke. I'm not David Copperfield. I can't make things disappear. You packed it right in, in your suitcase. Not only that, but in our case, because he's toxic as hell, there was absolutely no concern for my well-being, which means any problems you have will never be resolved because that person doesn't give a shit. Until it affected him. Oh, wait. She don't want to be intimate with me no more. Man's favorite thing is sticking it, right? I'm not allowing you to do that anymore because I don't feel close to you. Hey, we need to talk. No, 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 we do not. We absolutely do not need to talk. Because I tried that with you over and over and over again, and it went nowhere. So, don't. Now that it's inconvenient for you, we need to get to the bottom of it. Yeah. I don't think so. Anyway, much love. You guys take care. Food for thought. Bye.